Welcome to the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. I am your host, Chad Hufford, and this is the podcast where we celebrate the unsung heroes of the working world. Each week, we dive into the incredible stories of honest, hardworking folks who have found financial success through grit, determination, and good old-fashioned elbow grease. So if you're ready to be inspired and learn how to turn your hard work into your own success story, you're in the right place. This is the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. So another episode of the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. I've got Greg Parret. I'm Chad Hufford, your host. And in a previous episode, we talked a little bit about the importance of following a plan, a strategic course. And, you know, one of the things that we say a lot is most people don't have a plan to run out of money in retirement. Yeah, but do you have a plan not to?
Sure.
And one of the questions that you asked is, you know, what do people do when things happen? You know, when uncertainty strikes, and the tendency, if you don't have a plan, is to react to the crazy world around you. And usually that reaction is more of an emotional, it's more a visceral one. If you don't have a pathway or a course, or what we call a blueprint, a financial blueprint to look at to show you what you need to do to guide your saving and investing decisions, the tendency is just to react in the moment. Right. And usually that reaction isn't good. I know back in a previous life when you used to work in a welding shop, occasionally people would set themselves on fire.
Yeah, myself included.
Yeah. Like, I'm guessing the moments that followed were probably not the most rational, reasonable moments.
Normally there was profanity involved. I'm ashamed to say.
Okay.
Not for myself, of
course. Yes. So, yeah, you were like, gosh darn it.
Yeah.
This fire is warm. But point being that if you don't have a plan to act on, you are much more likely to react in an inappropriate manner to the circumstances around you.
Okay.
And you've seen it at your old job. You've definitely seen it here. But I think this goes back to what we've talked to people before, mentioned several times on a regular weekly basis, that a portfolio is not a plan.
Okay. And explain that out a little bit more.
Well, let's just pick on target dates for a moment, because a lot of people, you've probably seen this. I mean, when somebody comes in, maybe they're a referral or something like that, or maybe they found us on the web, but they come in first time, they're sitting down with us. The target date fund, and different companies have different names from, like the Freedom Fund, but it's usually there's a date attached to it, like the 2030 Freedom Fund or the 2030 target date or the retirement 2035.
Right.
I mean, you're seeing that all the time.
Certainly. And
it's a portfolio. It's a mix of a bunch of different funds and a bunch of different investments, some stocks, some bonds. But it's based on a date, not personal financial objectives. And it's kind of geared towards, hey, if you're going to retire at such and such a date, this is how some robot thinks you should be invested. And got a lot of issues with that beyond what we're going to talk about today. One of them being, as you get closer to that date, those funds push you to more and more fixed income. Right. And fixed income in a rising cost world is asking for a disaster in the future, but that's what they do. But bigger than that, having a portfolio with some sort of a timestamp on it sometimes can give people the feeling like they have a plan.
Yeah, I suppose that a lot of people probably think that that's a plan in and of itself. It says that I'm supposed to retire at 2035. Isn't that the plan?
Yeah. My goal is to retire at 2035 when I'm 65, let's say. So yeah, now I have a plan. But it doesn't tell you anything about your goals, your needs, where you're starting from, where you want to be. And it is simply just a portfolio. It's simply just a portfolio. It's a mix of tools. And it's not a plan any more than a shopping cart full of tools is a blueprint for a house.
Right.
And there's a world of difference, Greg, you know this, between somebody strategically investing for desired outcome and somebody merely collecting investments. And my fear is that a lot of people who are diligent savers, now, most Americans aren't saving anything for retirement or saving anything close to what they should, but even for the people that are maxing out their 401ks, maybe they're in a trade, maybe they have a pension too, but they're diligently saving for the future. But a lot of those people are more collecting investments than they are strategically investing.
Sure. And I think they do so thinking that they are, especially with those retirement date funds that you're talking about.
It gives people that false sense that I have a plan because some one-size-fits-all target date fund lines up with a date that I think I would like to retire, but it tells them nothing about, are they on track? Are they investing enough? Or are those tools in that target date even the right tools to build what they're trying to build? Because we all have different goals. We all have different, we might say, everybody wants to retire and not have to go back to work. That's true, but some people might be able to do that on $5,000 a month. For some, it's $10,000. Some people might have started investing when they were 20. Some people might have really only paid attention to start really saving at 55. Some people might be carrying debt into retirement. Other people's there's so many variables. We can't assume that just because we have a portfolio with some sort of timestamp that we have an actual financial plan.
So how do we go about starting up that plan? That seems inundating.
It is. I think one of it can be very intimidating. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the first things people can do is just come up with a target income, because that's going to dictate a lot of the other planning. And the way to think about this is, if you were going to retire at the first of next month, how much money would you need hitting your checking account every single month from now until you take your last breath to give you the freedom to live life on your terms? You might not be able to do everything you want to do. You might be out there racing Ferraris and yachts, but you've got a comfortable, meaningful lifestyle. You're at least maintaining your current standard of living. And maybe there's a little extra to do some of the things, maybe travel and hobbies that you don't have time to do right now because you're working every day. And this is a concept of a job optional lifestyle. Mm-hmm. Some people that we work with don't actually even retire. Oh, right. They might continue on. They might switch careers. They might go into ministry. But it's this idea that there's a finite amount of income that hits your checking account every single month that gives you the freedom to no longer need your paycheck.
I think an important part to remember with that is planning your retirement as what kinds of things you want to do in retirement. So if you do want to spend a month in Italy every year, how much does that month in Italy cost? And actually going through and trying to figure that part out to find out what that goal is.
What you said about saying it is planning what you're retiring to.
Exactly.
Everybody knows what they're retiring from. And some people might be a career that they love. For some people, you talk to them and it's like they're running out of a burning building. I've got one of the guys at APD, Anchorage Police Department, that we work with. He's got a calendar and he marks down the days. I'm like, you're not the one in prison. You put people in prison, but you're acting like you're in prison. Right. But the way he talks, it's almost like, it's almost like you're escaping. And not to diminish the stress and difficulty that those men and women go through, but we want our focus more to be on what we're retiring to, not just what we're retiring from. And that way our plan has more meaning. But even if that is your focus right now, that, man, I don't want to do this job any longer than I have to, there still needs to be a plan. You want to follow a blueprint. A blueprint shows you, are you building the right thing? Mm-hmm. Are you on track? That's one of the biggest questions that you get, I get, is, am I on track for retirement? Because people don't know. And we could go so many different directions with that. But even for somebody who has been diligently saving and they are on track, without a financial blueprint, guiding and educating your saving and spending decisions, you don't know. And it can create this stress and anxiety because there's there's always more. You can always work another year. You can always put more money away. And financial planning is not like football. There's no referee that comes by the goal line, puts his hand up, says, touchdown, Greg, you made it. You can move on now.
Right.
And people retire hoping that they've saved enough, hoping that they've invested the right way, hoping that their portfolio will pay for their needs and keep their family secure for the next 20, 30 years. But hope is a terrible strategy to retire on. We want to have a plan that shows not just that we're going to be okay, but how.
I know as somebody that was an early saver and a welder, starting when I was 18 years old, I went to UAA to learn how to weld. It felt like for a long time I was just throwing money into the ether and just hoping, like you said. And when I went under your tutelage for a little while on learning this stuff, it seemed as if it reduced a lot of anxiety in me, actually having a plan and knowing that I wasn't just throwing money at something out there somewhere, but that I'm actually buying stock in real companies and the best companies of the world. Really brought a sense of peace to my life.
Well, and it also gave you some short-term wins because there was a big number attached to your financial independence goal. Mm-hmm. And for most people, it's going to be in the millions of dollars. Most people will need several $1 million to retire and stay retired comfortably for a very long time. And we've got tools to help people figure out what that number is, but that number can be very intimidating. But when you have a plan, it reverse engineers the future into the moment. And let's say, just to make up, we don't actually need to make up numbers, but there's this big number out there, Greg, that you need to have in investments to be able to no longer need a paycheck of any kind and to take care of you and your family for the rest of your life. But every month there's a target for how much you need to add to your investments, not just how much, but the specific investments that you're buying, the specific tools that you're buying to build your financial house. And every month you can celebrate that win. So somebody, a lot of our folks, whether they're working on the slope or we mentioned law enforcement, like you're still working in your job. You're not financially independent yet, but you know that you executed this month what you need to stay on track for the future. And I think that's where some of your clarity and confidence came from. So even if that light at the end of the tunnel is still a ways off, knowing that you did what you needed to stay on track, like you served the future version of yourself this month, those little wins can really keep people going and allow people to wade through times of uncertainty. Because yes, there's a lot outside that they can't control. It's scary, but they did what they can control. They followed their plan. They executed the strategy, and now they're one step closer.
So what do you do with that plan when we do have those times of uncertainty that you talked about, when we have, the craziness in the market and something, you turn on the news and you see, oh man, the market took a huge dive. Does that change the plan at all?
The plan changes when your goals change.
Okay.
So the short answer to that is no. Now, sometimes the plan does change. Your tools and tactics may change. And this is where I think that building analogy is important. I mean, most people, if you've ever built a house, the final house, the product that comes out of that is not what you started building typically. There's going to be a lot of derivations, a lot of changes, a lot of revisions to the plan. And when my wife and I built our house, the joke was that I didn't have enough money to pay for the house and the marriage counseling simultaneously, so we couldn't do it. Because everybody's like, oh, you fight, you argue about all these different things. Well, we walked into this home that had been recently built by a builder that was referred to us by multiple people, and the builder thought, he listened to what our needs and desires were, and he's like, I think there's a house that will be an example of some of those things. He's like, this isn't going to be perfect fit for you, but it gives you an idea of some of the things that I can do. And I think it will showcase some of the options that you guys are going to really enjoy. So we look at the house, and my wife's like, this is perfect. This is exactly what we want. We already had a lot. So she's like, basically, we want this house on our lot with a basement and a homeschool room. Like, that's all we need differently. We're going to flip a couple things, like flip the order. But she's like,
Sure.
I want to keep the same tile. I want to keep the color scheme. I want to keep the countertops. I want to keep the backsplash. I want to keep the cabinets, all those different things. So that's what our blueprint was based off of.
Okay.
And we made some adjustments to it to start with. And then we started building. The only thing that survived the building process was the flooring.
The tile. Yeah.
Not even the tile. The wood flooring. The tile got changed, the back, everything. The cabinets got changed, the countertops, everything changed. Mm-hmm. So it's not that your plan has to be perfect or your long-term goals. Like, we're not going to hold people, hey, back in 2024, you said you needed X dollars amount per month to live off of. But the point is, we always had a blueprint. Our plan changed many times, but we always had something bigger guiding our strategy, guiding the tools and tactics we were using to build our physical house. As the goals changed, it forced us to adjust the blueprint and then adjust the materials and tools we were using. But we had a strategy the entire time. And what that did, Greg, is it kept us from reacting to the weather while we were building, because we were focused on what we were building, not what was going on around us.
Yeah. And so do you ever see people go backwards in that plan, or are they normally going what we would consider forward? For instance, I know what I see oftentimes is somebody maybe starts with plan A, and they work that plan for a long time, but then they get an inheritance that they weren't even thinking about, something like that. And so plan A turns into plan B, which is actually, I don't want to say more extravagant, but it allows more freedom in their life than they ever knew possible. Does it go backwards very often, or what do you see?
It absolutely can. So, and here's the nice thing about that. So you have this plan, and then let's say you do get a windfall. Well, you might just be able to accelerate that process. Maybe in that your 10-year timeline for financial independence becomes 5 or 8, or maybe you can increase the size of your income. Maybe your target income was replacing $8,000 a month. Well, now it's 10. There was a few things that grew on our house as we were building.
Sure.
The week before we sent our plans to the Muni to get all those revised, both my wife and her twin sister hit our garage at our old house. They clipped the side of it, and I was like, I want our base to be wider. So sometimes your plans can grow a little bit. But even when you have something, like you said, that a setback, maybe you lose your job. Maybe you end up having to take care of a family member, and you're not able to save as much because you have money going towards those things. Doesn't matter what it is, an illness. Any type of setback, though, if you have a plan for where you need to be and the steps to get there, it'll show you what you need to do to get back on track.
Okay.
So it doesn't take away the impact of the setback. But what it does do is it gives you a pathway to get back on the right path.
Right. Rather than maybe my previous strategy of just, I don't know what to do now. Maybe I'll throw more money at the ether somewhere.
Yep. Or a lot of people just give up, unfortunately. Or they might start dismantling that long-term goal. Like, I can't do that anymore. But they've never actually done the plan. They just figured, because of this setback, I can't have the life that I thought I might be able to have. And maybe that is true if the setback is large enough, but we don't want people to give up. And the folks that we work with, the blue collar millionaires, they're more diligent. They're more driven. They know how to do the hard things that most people aren't willing to do to get to a place that most people will never achieve. Sure. They have the grit to be able to weather the storms of life, but they still need a blueprint. They need to be shown what it is they're building. And yes, they have a portfolio, but the portfolio is not the focus. The portfolio is servant to the overall plan. And the long-term plan is going to dictate the tools we use. Otherwise, it's like you and I meeting at Home Depot, going through the aisles, picking out random tools and materials, meeting in the parking lot saying, well, Greg, we've accumulated all this junk. What are we going to build with it?
Yeah, let's build some stuff.
Yeah. And you and I both seen houses here in Anchorage that look like they were built that way.
Yeah.
But that's not how we want somebody's financial future to look. Like, I wouldn't want to live in a house that was built without a blueprint. I wouldn't want your financial future to be any different. So the portfolio is important. Those are the tools and tactics that you're using, but it has to serve the plan. Blue collar millionaires, they have a plan. They have a blueprint for where they want to be, how they're going to get there, and what those steps look like along the way.
That's awesome.
Thanks, Greg.
All right. Thank you, Chad.
Thanks for listening to the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. We hope this episode has been inspiring and beneficial to you. If you want help on your journey to financial freedom, reach out to us at veritasalaska.com. We'd love to sit down over a cup of coffee with you, either here in our office or virtually, and get to know you and your needs. And though this podcast is free of charge, we do ask that you please do us two quick favors. If you enjoyed the episode, give our pod a great rating on iTunes or whatever podcast platform you use, and also give us a follow on Instagram. We hope you have a wonderful day filled with gratitude and intentionality. God bless.
The information expressed is for general information only and is not intended to provide specific investment advice or recommendations for any individual. It is suggested that you consult your financial professional, attorney, or tax advisor with regard to your individual situation. Hypothetical investment results are for illustrative purposes only and should not be deemed a representation of future results.